You're tuned into the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Zeno Pucks. Here are your hosts, Andy and Brian Matusi.
Welcome back to Fresh Ice. Andy and Brian here with you as always. The show's presented by Zeno Pucks. I know you guys have been waiting for our Eastern Conference preview episode, but we have a little bit of change in our plan for this episode. Make a long story short, Brian was out of town this weekend, and we didn't have enough time to really set things up for the Eastern Conference this week. So there's plenty of news that took place over the last week that we're going to cover today. And then this coming Sunday, we will get back with you for the Eastern Conference preview. Granted, the season will have already started, but we won't even be a full week into it. So that still gives us plenty of time to evaluate each team and kind of make our speculations, which will most likely inevitably be wrong as they typically are. So with that being said, we got a lot to cover today. So I think Brian's got the whole rundown for you right now.
Yeah, and I'll just say to the point about the conference preview show, the last month of my life has been extremely chaotic. We've had a lot going on, and I didn't have quite enough time last week to put together a real full list of notes for the Eastern Conference like I did for the Western Conference. I didn't have enough time to put together a full list of every team, records, signings, personal thoughts, that kind of thing, some facts and things like that. I just didn't have the correct amount of time, and this show would have been very apparent if we recorded the show without these notes being complete. So it stinks, but I'll have time this week to get it done, and then we'll be able to put something more organized together on Sunday. And as you mentioned, we won't even be a full weekend, so I don't think it'll be like we're too late to do any or to make any kind of previews or predictions. So I think it should be okay. But it's just been, like I said, pretty chaotic the last month or so. So we'll see where things go. But yeah, as you mentioned, we do have quite a few things to talk about today, so we can jump right into it. Before we get started with all the big juicy things that happened kind of earlier or later last week and into the weekend, I do want to quickly congratulate Erik Johnson on an outstanding hockey career. He officially announcing his retirement last week, but Johnson played over 1,000 games, mostly with the Colorado Avalanche. Obviously won the Stanley Cup with them in 2022, and then got to finish his career with them at the back end of last season. So Johnson, just a career kind of a two-way defender, but more of a stay-at-home guy. But an outstanding hockey player in his own right. Again, 1,000 games doesn't happen by accident. Let's see here, 348 points for his career too, which as a defenseman is very good. Was there for the good and the bad with the Avalanche. I mean, they went through some real dark days in the late 2010s, but he was there for the good and the bad. And again, ultimately won a Stanley Cup. But a guy who got to go first overall too, which obviously not a lot of people get to say, drafted by the Blues first overall in 2006. And again, played parts of 3 seasons with them before eventually going over to Colorado and playing all but 3 seasons of his career there afterwards. So, all but 2 seasons. He technically played he played with 2 teams last season as he was traded back to the Avalanche from Philly. So, congrats to Erik Johnson again, and just a wonderful career, great hockey player, a U.S. guy, a Minnesota guy. So definitely a player I'm a big fan of, but glad to see him hanging him up. And I don't know if he's destined for the Hall of Fame, but he's not a guy that Avalanche fans will probably forget for a long time if they ever do.
I will say he's a guy that NHL fans probably won't forget if they ever do. 1,000 games in the NHL doesn't happen by accident. So hell of a career. He's got the cup. I mean, he got everything you would want if you had a career in the NHL. He's got. So kudos to him, and retirement's going to be bright for him.
Yep. Didn't win any major singular awards, but again, a guy who was reliable every single night they called on him. He was never a guy where you're like, oh, this guy's a pylon. No, he was just always extremely effective. And the guys that you don't notice on the ice sometimes are the best guys, because they're not making mistakes to draw attention to themselves. They're just playing responsible hockey, and he definitely embodied that. So very excited for him and kind of bummed that he's gone. But Father Time gets everybody.
Yes. Now, I have to say before you move on, I am itching to share the big news regarding this show. I've already shared it on my personal Facebook. I feel like I have to announce this because I'm geeked and I know you are.
Shouldn't it be done during Blue Jackets corner? Wouldn't it be more fitting? Or will the anticipation kill everybody as they try and guess what it is, and we should just tell them now?
Yeah, let's tell them now. I already dropped the ball. So, so our first guest this season, we are very excited about this. Recently retired and legendary play-by-play commentator for the Columbus Blue Jackets, Jeff Rimmer, is going to be joining us on this show here in the coming weeks. We don't have the official date set in stone. We have an idea. We have to work it out on our end, and he has to work it out on his end. But after speaking with him, it is confirmed he will be on this show, and we are very excited about it. And we're really looking forward to sitting down with him and discussing his time with the Blue Jackets and his career as a broadcaster. I'm over the moon.
Yeah, no, it'll be exciting. For those who don't know, again, as Andrew mentioned, Jeff Rimmer spent the better part of the last 20 years as the television play-by-play voice for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So, Jackets fans will instantly know who this is and be very excited. But for those of you who don't, you're in for a real treat. This guy was probably one of the best in the business for, I would say, the majority of his career broadcasting with the Jackets. So very cool that we're going to have him on. There's also an outside chance we're going to have a former player on before too long. So we won't say who that is yet because it's not completely set in stone, but there may be something coming through the pipeline here. So a couple of things to be looking forward to, but yeah, I'm very excited to have Jeff Rimmer on. That's going to be a great show.
Yeah. And, I couldn't resist the opportunity. Being that, this is an Ohio based podcast and you and I do go to Blue Jackets games. And obviously we loved listening to Rimmer call games. I figured, especially that we do a Blue Jackets corner on this podcast. I just figured there was
who better to have on the show than him.
Exactly. I don't think we could have picked a better guest for that. So
unless we can get like Zach Werenski.
Let's not count our eggs before they hatch.
Yeah, I know. I'm just teasing. So,
but I just figured the guy who spent the majority or a good portion of his career calling those games, he was there for every important moment in the franchise's history. There isn't a better candidate out there to have on this show, and I cannot wait to sit down and talk to him. So that's the news. Make sure you stay tuned and you're following us everywhere you need to stay up to date, and we will keep you posted on when that episode will be.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see if we can get in touch with I guess it's not Bally Sports anymore, but FanDuel Sports or Fox Sports or whatever would have all of his best the copyright for all of his best calls. I would assume Fox Sports. Almost his entire career as a broadcaster, it was Fox Sports that was the local broadcast for the Blue Jackets. So I don't know who he'd have to get a hold of, but I'd love to be able to play some of his best calls on the show before we introduce him. So we'll have to see what we can track down, but it's going to be exciting. It'll be very cool to have him on. I would put this up there just as exciting as when we had guys like Mark Mowers on and Andrew Alberts, guys that were in the show. And I think this will be just as fun as a guy who spent, and again, an entire career around this game. It'll be really exciting. So can't wait for that.
He lived the dream. He got paid to watch hockey.
Yeah, I was going to say.
You can't beat that.
Nothing better than that, right? So, yeah. All right, let's move on. We'll start with the big one. First of all, Connor McDavid signs in Edmonton with the Oilers. This just came down the pipeline actually this morning. So we'll get to the other one that was big news over the weekend. But McDavid signs 2 more years at 12.5 per season. So a great deal monetarily for the Oilers. Obviously this contract is structured to be, okay, let's go get a Stanley Cup deal. This is kind of the last call. I don't know what his intentions down the line are, but this certainly feels like let's build a Stanley Cup winning team or I'm bouncing kind of feel. I don't like to speculate like that, especially after how vocal I was about being annoyed by the speculation around Kirillionaire Kaprizov, which I was right about.
Yeah.
I don't like to speculate like this, but again, when it's a 2-year deal like that kind of, and especially he's right in his prime right now. So that to me kind of is Like, this is the team's prove it deal. Normally players on a prove it deal. This is the team's prove it deal. So they get him locked up 2 years, 12.5. And then they also lock up Jake Wallman, 7 years, $7 million per season. These are 2 contracts. Obviously, McDavid is probably the best player in the world, so getting him locked up is as vital as anything. And Jake Wallman, who was very effective for the Oilers down the stretch last year, gets his hard effort pays off in a nice lengthy contract for him.
Yeah, the first thing I want to say real quick, I don't think there's a logical human being on this planet that listens to this show that doubted what you said in regards to the Wild signing Kaprizov. I think you hit the nail right on the head with it, and I think everybody was on board with you. And if you weren't, you don't listen to this show enough, because you should know Brian knows what he's talking about. With that being said, you took the words right out of my mouth with McDavid. This is kind of his way of being like, all right, if you guys don't prove something to me here, I'm bouncing at the end of this contract. That's how I look at it. So, and rightfully so, like you said, he's arguably the best player in the world right now. And I mean, I was a little not surprised, but I was kind of like, oh shit, he only signed for 2 years. Like that, I mean, that alone should be a wake up call to the organization. So, and I mean, if I'm an Oilers fan, which I'm not, but if I am, that should make you nervous. Absolutely. And, yeah, the guy doesn't sit there. He's a humble guy, but he's not stupid. He knows how good he is. He knows what he's worth, and he knows better than to waste his time. So I think, especially coming off back-to-back Stanley Cup final losses to the same team for that matter, I think it's like, what gives? What do we got to do? Look, we're going to figure this out, but we're going to do it in a allotted amount of time, or I'm going to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and I will say to the Oilers' credit, hang on, I'll let you get back to that in a sec. They did get Connor Ingram from Utah over the weekend, so a goalie who's very capable of being a number one goalie, but just obviously, given what he's been through the last several months, or last year even, wasn't in the right situation. So I think a fresh start behind a Stanley Cup contender might be exactly what they're looking for. Go ahead.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was getting ready to mention that here. I think that's a great fit for both Edmonton and Connor Ingram. I think given the right situation and you ice a team like Edmonton in front of him, he's going to be very successful. And I think that's what's really going to make Edmonton lethal, aside from how lethal they already are offensively. I think that gives them the gas they need to go right back to where they were last year. So I don't disagree with McDavid. I actually, as a fan of the game, I have an appreciation for what he's done. 2 years, $12 million. He's getting good money, which he should be, best player in the world. And he pretty much just started the timer. You got 2 years, figure this shit out. And so
3 if you count this season.
Well,
his current deal is still good for this, so technically 3, but the point remains.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I think taking a team-friendly deal is the right thing to do. I actually, less than I expected, but I saw a lot of comments comparing his deal to Kaprizov's, but I think most people were kind of the same ilk. They're 2 way different contracts and way different situations. First of all, McDavid obviously, yes, is the better player, but is in a situation again where they're coming off 2 straight Stanley Cup final losses to the same team. This guy at this point will do anything to win a Stanley Cup. And I'm not saying Kirill Kaprizov wouldn't, but their situations are vastly different. The Oilers were slammed right up against the cap because of some previous poor decisions financially. And again, they pay Draisaitl $14 million. They're paying Bouchard $10 million. They're paying, or $10.5 million. They're paying Darnell Nurse over 9. I don't know what the number is, but it's too much. Like, they're paying a lot of money to just a couple guys on their team. And McDavid, again, at this point, they've gone through it so much. I think he's just really, really willing to do whatever it takes at this point to win. And so I can respect that. Whereas Kirill in the Wild, and I'll get to it more in a minute when we talk about that. It's a situation where the team is capable, but hasn't proven anything yet. They still haven't gotten out of the first round. And this is a guy who is, the best player in the team's franchise history. And so, I wish he would have taken the 16 they offered him in the first place, but it's a way different deal. And with the cap going up, it's going to even out over time. But I thought it was very fair value for a guy that's looking to help his money or help his team save some money so they can build around him. And again, I think they're already starting to address it. We dogged on him about the goaltending, and they've addressed it. I don't know if they'll yield the same kind of results Colorado did with Mackenzie Blackwood last year, but I have to imagine they'll start to see some more consistency if this guy's going to get a shot.
Yeah, I got to agree with you. And like I said, you don't want to compare him to Colorado because or I say, like you said, you
Minnesota.
don't want to compare him to, to Minnesota because it's completely different situations. Whereas the Edmonton Oilers are coming off back-to-back Stanley Cup final appearances. Meanwhile, the Wild are just trying to make the playoffs at this point. So way different situations for two different caliber
trying to win
players.
around.
Yeah, I was well, you got to get there to win around anyway. So
yeah.
But again, that's not to say anything's unjustified. And back to your point about McDavid, team-friendly deal that shows how committed he is to winning. It's not about the personal achievement, it's about the team achievement at this point. And I think that speaks volumes to the kind of player and person and leader McDavid is.
Yep. No, that's absolutely right. So, and again, with the whole thing with it being different situations, I like I said, I think it's a perfect contract, but I just drove me nuts seeing some of the early comparisons right away to Kaprizov's deal, because as we're going to talk about in just a second, they're just, it's just so different. So with that in mind, I would say real quickly too, that the Oilers, depending on how Connor Ingram does there, I mean, could instantly jump up the ladder for Stanley Cup favorites. And I still think they shouldn't be taken lightly anyways. They've taken essentially this same group to the finals twice. So they shouldn't be taken lightly regardless, but behind a good goalie, yeah, they're going to be scary. So we'll see what fortunes the Oilers get now that they've got all this drama resolved. And now we'll go over to Minnesota where they resolve their drama too. So first and foremost, they finally, and it did age like milk, like I hoped for on our last episode. But the Wild finally extended Kirill Kaprizov's contract, extended 8 more years, $136 million. It is the highest paying contract in NHL history. And look, it kind of drove me nuts a little bit that after this deal was signed, I mean, all this song and dance was all over $1 million. But again, previously, like I mentioned on the last show, it comes down to the fact that, yeah, the first deal was turned down, but normally that stuff doesn't make it out into the public. So, I mean, when you think about it, think of the offer the Oilers probably gave McDavid the first go around, and it wasn't a fit. It didn't get out right away that he's turning down deals and walking away from X amount of dollars. And in Kirill's case, it was different because, again, still the highest contract offer in NHL history that he turned down, but then accepts this one. So it kind of drove me nuts that all this was over $1 million. But again, the situations are very different. This is a guy who is the best player in his team's franchise history. I know, obviously, especially last season, he's dealt with some injury issues, and it's not been perfect. But for his career, he's been a point a game every single year except his rookie season, which he had 51 points in 55 games. But the rest of the years, 108 points in 81 games, 75 points in 67 games, 96 points in 75 games. Last year, 56 points in 41 games. I mean, the guy's scoring 100-point pace. So when he's healthy, we know he's one of the best. But for the Wild, who have had virtually no success in his tenure, it's just a way different scenario. Like I said, McDavid and the Oilers are doing anything they can to get over the hump and win the Stanley Cup. I mean, it's 2 Stanley Cup, it's 2 Stanley Cups lost in a row. They'll do whatever they can, and they could be destined for a third one in a row with the Panthers. So who knows? But for the Wild, it's all about just getting over that hump, breaking the curse, getting out of the first round, doing anything. And I know it might be a bit of an overpayment, but as a fan of the team, I couldn't stomach losing him by itself. But as far as the on-ice product goes, this team, I mean, when he's not in the lineup, they just can't score nearly as effectively. Matt Boldy and Marco Rossi can drive the offense only to a certain extent, but it's just not the same without him on the ice. So, I mean, even if they would have gone up to 18 million, I would have said it's probably enough.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, he is that piece that really ties the whole team together. So I'm a big fan of what Minnesota's doing as a whole. They're definitely on the up and up, and there's definitely a silver lining here. But I think locking down Kaprizov was the smartest thing they can do. And I think they realize it doesn't matter what it's like. We don't care what it's going to cost us. We're making sure he stays here. And you brought it up too, that he didn't want to leave. And obviously that we knew a deal was going to get done. So I think this is the right move. I know it's a lot of money, and some people are going to say they overpaid for him. I think given the circumstances, I don't think there's a wrong number to pay him, or a number that's too high to pay him in this sense.
I don't necessarily think there is either. And I mentioned this by the way, and this is probably the last time I'll mention the Oilers or try to. I mentioned the Oilers being up against the cap ceiling. The Wild had a way more cap flexibility here to make this deal. And you have to consider that if I remember correctly, the cap's going up by like $9 million next season. It's already guaranteed to be at least like a $9 million jump. So Kirill's making $18 million now. He was making, I think, 9.5 on his last deal. In fact, I could probably pull that up on Puckpedia. I have it open. But for Kirill, the money that the cap's going to go up, it should offset this entire raise he got, which maybe isn't the best way to look at this in the big picture because all the other teams are also going to get that $9 million as well. But the Wild believe they can win with this core. I tend to believe that, again, if health isn't an issue, which it has been the last 5 seasons with this team, if health isn't an issue, I do believe this team has the guns to go deep. It just is not aligned for them. But that's a separate debate by itself. But they have their core locked up. So ultimately, even as a fan, my opinion doesn't matter. The management group, which I do believe in, believes that this team is good enough to go far, and they've got their guys locked up. So I can't complain. I agree that this whole drawn out thing with Kirill should have never taken this long. But I'm glad he signed. He's an outstanding hockey player. I love watching him every night. And he just makes the Wild so much better. It's so much easier for guys I just mentioned earlier, Marco Rossi, Matt Boldy, these new guys, the next wave coming in, guys like Liam Ogren and Danila Yurov, and even Z Boyum on the back end, these guys that can bring these big offensive, threats on the ice. They're made even better when Kirill's out there because he's usually drawn the attention of at least 2 defenders. So it opens up space. So not only is he good himself, but he's able to make guys around him better because he's pulling coverage away from those guys because everybody's scared of what's Kirill going to do. And to me, I think it suits what you said perfectly. You really can't put a price on having a guy like that, especially when you lose any trade you make if they were to trade him, and you lose your total ass and probably some fans if you let him walk for nothing. So
exactly,
this was absolutely necessary. There was no other way this could end and be good for the Wild other than getting him signed. So I'm happy he's here and the drama's done.
I'm right there with you. And to further my point, I would have been far more concerned had they not signed him and said, yeah, we're not paying you what you want, than having quote unquote overpaid for him. I'd much rather them lock him down for whatever number it takes. And I'm not even a fan of the team. I'm just saying they would have been nothing other than stupid to let him walk. So
absolutely.
This all around, it was a good move on the Wild's part. And again, I'm with you. I'm not a fan of the Wild, but I do believe in the management team, and I do believe that this group has what it takes. I think they can be a very good team as long as everybody stays healthy and performing at max level. I think this team can go far.
Also, to bounce off what I said earlier as well, Kirill's currently making $9 million. This is the last season of his current deal, $9 million against the cap, and he's going up to 17. So the $9 million, the cap's going to go up. It'll be offset by his $8 million raise he'll get next year, but it'll be the Wild will still come out of it with more cap money more cap space when his contract kicks in anyway. So they won't be losing their complete ass on this. This is also the final year Matt Zuccarello is on the books making 4.1, which I think he might be looking at retirement before too long. I hope not, because I like him, but he's 38 and he's been dealing with injuries now for the last little bit, and he's currently injured right now. So I don't know how many more years he's got in the tank, but they're going to get some cap space here. Again, they have the next wave of guys coming through, so I'm not too worried about the cap savings. Bill Guerin's been very, very publicly, or not publicly, but criticized online just by fans of the team in general and some writers who shouldn't have their jobs. But for the most part, I think most sensible fans of this team and most educated reporters and media members around this game understand what a tall task Bill Guerin has had in front of him since the day he took over. And I think to this point, he's managed it beautifully. There's certainly been some bumps in the road along the way, but we're here now, and this team's going to ice probably one of the best teams it's ever been able to ice in its history. So I don't know. I really can't complain. I don't understand the flack Bill Guerin's taken all these years, given what he was up against, but we're here now, and he's got the whole core locked up. They solved the Marco Rossi drama. They solved the Kirill drama. Boldy's making $7 million until 2030, which is awesome. Brock Faber's only making $8.5 until 2033, which is awesome. And Jonas Brodin still has 3 years left at $6 million, and he's quietly one of the best shutdown defenders in the league. This team's built extremely well, and will be even more secure for years to come with the Gus Bus locking up another long-term deal. So he's going to get a nice 6-year deal. That's going to take him all the way to 2031 with the team. He's going to be making $6.8 million against the salary cap. So for the Wild, they get Gustafsson, who is coming off a really good season, a well-earned raise there. And now the Wild, with the retirement of Marc-Andre Fleury, are going to roll with Jesper Wallstedt and Philip Gustafsson. And I think this duo is going to be great. But again, Gus gets that big extension for the Wild. So now we can finally have some peace in the land for at least a couple of years.
I'm happy for you, man. I truly am.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Gus extension I figured was coming. I thought it was actually a little high given what the goalie market's been like, but I won't complain one bit. Gus, I love having him here. He had a little bit of a sophomore slump, but a couple seasons ago, but bounced back very well last year and had just a really good season. So I'm looking forward to more from him. He's still only 27. So the Wild, look, like I said, they believe in this core. And if they believe in it and it's as good as they hope it is, this is perfect because a lot of these guys are in their prime, like Kirill. A lot of these guys are in their prime, and this is going to be as good a chance as they have to win with this group. So we'll see where the future takes us. But for Minnesota now, as a fan of the team, I am glad the tomfoolery is done.
Yeah, now you can just enjoy watching the team this season.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about anything.
Yeah, now the only things that'll piss me off is when they play like shit against teams they're 10 times better than. That'll drive me nuts all year. But that's part of being a sports fan. I think every sports fan has had those moments. So I'm glad. I'm very happy.
My life as a Packers fan.
Yeah, dude, no shit, eh? All right, let's go to another team whose fans have to be happy. The Devils. Luke Hughes locks up for 7 more years there, $9 million a season. This is a pretty good deal. This deal has potential to be outstanding, given again where the cap's headed in the next couple of years. I mean, we could be seeing an almost $20 million bump in the cap over the next few seasons. And Luke Hughes locking up for 7 years I think he was an RFA, so I don't think that's after this. I think his contract starts right now. I'll bring him up on Puckpedia in a second, but Luke Hughes, again, one of the great young defenders in this league, really is still kind of carving a path for himself, but is already showing signs that he's going to be one of the best in the league for years to come. And yes, that deal he signed does start this season, so he was an RFA, and this deal is going to kick in, with the start of this season. So he'll be making $9 million a year again until 2032. So good for him. I'm excited to see, how he continues to grow and develop there. Obviously, his brother Jack is already one of the best young players in this game too. So for both of them to be signed long-term, I think Devils fans are just foaming at the mouth now, waiting to see what Quinn Hughes is going to do, if he's going to come to town and complete the puzzle there. But for the Devils, I mean, this is an outstanding deal. And again, we'll talk about the Devils more in our Eastern Conference preview next week. But I think there's still a little work to be done here. But overall, this is a very good team. And again, if you get a good Jacob Markstrom, you don't have to be perfect, because when he's at his best, man, Markstrom is just unstoppable. He makes it look so effortless when he's on his game. So we'll see what kind of version of him the Devils get this year. But if I'm a Jersey fan, I am over the moon about Luke Hughes extending.
Yeah, I'm with you right there. And I think ultimately, regardless, I think this is going to be a much better season for them this year than last year. And I say that as far as playoffs are concerned too. I mean, we knew how last year was going to.
They were so banged up.
Yeah, everybody knew how that was going to go, unless you were just completely delusional. I think, provide everybody stays healthy this year, Luke Hughes included, I think they have a chance to do something special this year. I don't know that I necessarily see them as a cup contender yet, but obviously that's something we can talk about in the conference preview episode. But as far as the deal goes for Luke Hughes, I think this is like you said, it's a great deal long term, and I mean it's good for him too. I mean now he's getting some good money, and God, man, if Quinn Hughes ends up in Jersey, watch out. That's all I'm going to say.
I think we already pissed off Canucks fans last week, but we're probably going to do that again by saying this now. One thing I'll piggyback off of before we move on with the Devils. This is a really solid and interesting defensive core. I mean, Doug Hamilton is 32, but he still has a lot of good years in the tank. I feel like he's not bad. Like he's still effective out on the ice. Obviously, we just talked about how great Luke Hughes' start to his career has been. Brett Pesce, a healthy Brett Pesce, again, another guy who can really shut it down pretty well. I'm not a big Brendan Dillon guy, but he's there. So, I mean, utilize what you have. But I like Jonas Siegenthaler. I think he's effective. I know Kovacevic is injured for them, but he's another guy who I think when he's on, he can be very good. And again, both those guys, Siegenthaler and Kovacevic, really aren't making a ton. So, but they're effective guys. I don't feel like they're defensive liabilities. And of course, Simone Nemec is another guy who's there, who's young, that he's actually on an expiring deal, but he's another one who, if he hits his peak, it's going to be a very effective part of this really rock solid defensive core. And again, with Jake Markstrom in net, we know the Devils can score. Like, we know this is a capable offense. If they can shut it down on the back end, man, I think as long as they can stay healthy and not run into the train wreck they ran into last year, I think they'll be one of the most feared teams in the East this year. And again, we'll talk about them more in our conference preview, so I don't want to dive too deep, but they just look like they're really well put together, man.
Yeah, I got to agree with you, but again, I don't want to touch on that too much. You got to save it for next week.
Yep. Oh man, we'll get to this in a little while. This is in our notes, but looks like there were some suspensions from the fallout of the Tampa and Florida saga.
Yeah,
so we'll get to that.
Saw that coming.
Yeah, we'll get to that. That'll be a little bit later in the show. One last thing I want to get to before the break, another contract, a big one, and we actually talked about them on last week's show, was the Ducks getting the deal done with Jackson Lacombe. So he is now going to stay there until, let's see. Oh, it's an 8-year deal. Okay. I don't know why part of me was thinking that was a 7-year signing. But yeah, so Jackson Lacombe locks up 8 more years with the Ducks, $9 million per season. So again, kind of the similar situation with Luke Hughes and the Devils. It's a young player. Not as young as Luke Hughes, but it's a young player, young defenseman, with a team with a big buy-in. Ducks fans know, with how stingy management is about spending money, Ducks fans know this is a huge deal to get this done. I believe this is the highest cap hit a Ducks contract has ever had. So it's kind of weird, given when you think about the talent they've had in the past. But
yeah,
it is, if memory serves correct, I believe the team, or not the team, but and one of the analysts tweeted that out when the contract was announced. But for Jackson, again, this is a good deal. This is a team that is really all in with its young players. I mean, we talked about the Ducks last week, but again, you look at that back end, and you look at Lacombe and Minchikov and Zellweger, and these are all really good players, but like Minchikov and Zellweger on the final year of their deals, and Jackson Lacombe was, again, coming up on the final year of his too, but he gets the big deal signed. So now the Ducks need to get the 2 other young star defensemen locked up so they can move forward with this core. But yeah, it's a good deal for the Ducks. Again, they've bought 1,000,000% into this rebuild, so you might as well lock up the pieces you got. They had obviously they have plenty of cap space, and they still have plenty of cap space. So I'm sure before too long we'll get deals done for Minchikov and Zellweger, and before too long this will be aged like milk too. So last one. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say real quick, and it's not anything important, but I was gonna say, can you imagine? Okay, first of all, if I was making $900,000 anyway, I'd probably throw up. But can you imagine going from making $900,000 to $9 million in a year? Yeah, I would really throw up.
Yeah, 1,000% salary increase year over year would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Also, and I think we mentioned this on the last show too, but Cutter Gauthier, Leo Carlson, those guys are on the last year of their deals. So for the players that are pending RFAs that haven't signed a contract yet, I mean, these are prove-it deal. I mean, this is a prove-it season for a lot of these guys. Jacob Trouba too, again, last year of his deal, he's 31 before he becomes a UFA. I mean, he could have a chance to lock up long-term, or at least not short-term. He might be able to squeeze 4 or 5 year deal if he's got a good season here. So a lot of guys with a lot to play for this season. So the Ducks should be fascinating, but good that they at least get one of these young defensemen who are really starting to come into their own. It's good they get these guys locked up as they continue the build out there. Last one, and this wasn't actually in my notes, but it came to my head as we were discussing here. Luke Evangelista, we talked about the kind of the mess that the Preds are in right now and not having him sign. Well, they get a deal done. So Luke Evangelista extends 2 more seasons with the Predators at $3 million per season. I think the ceiling for Luke is still there. I think he scored like 50 goals in juniors, which guys have done that plenty of times in the past, and it doesn't translate to the show. And I get that, but Luke's shot in his offensive ability, I think, should be more than enough for him to be a consistent 30 to 40 goal scorer. So I'll be fascinated to see where his development goes. Again, especially given the situation he's in with Nashville, they're really kind of in a tough spot right now, with a lot on the line this season for sure. It seems like, as far as management and coaching, it seems like there's a lot at risk here. So, but this is a good young player. Yeah, a lot of hot seats, but this is a good young player who I think can thrive in the right situation. And so I'm hoping he really finds that next gear this year, but I'm glad now he's got a deal locked up and he can start playing. The problem is that the preseason is pretty much, I mean, the preseason is done. The season is starting, I think tomorrow. Actually, we're recording this Monday. So the season starts tomorrow. So it's going to kind of suck that he has no training camp, but again, a player of his skill potential, I think, should be able to jump in and catch up before too long. Maybe a couple weeks it'll take him to get going. So, and as of right now, the Predators still show Brady Martin on the roster. So unless I missed something here, it sounds like their young draft pick will be starting the season with them. So that could be good. That could be exactly the relief or the help, or however you want to call it. This could be exactly what the Preds need, is just injecting some more youth into the lineup.
Yeah,
we'll see. They solved their Evangelista drama, which was a big deal.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, and I don't know the backstory, but all I would say from the outside looking in, shame on them for dragging their feet on this. This should have been done a lot sooner, but better late than never, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But now they've got much bigger fish to fry that they can focus on now that minor inconvenience is out of the way.
Now, this is somewhat speculative because nothing's set in stone, but according to dailyfaceoff.com, they show Brady Martin listed as the number 1 center for the Preds. So I don't know how that'll pan out long term, but especially when they have guys like Stamkos and O'Reilly who very clearly can line up as a number 1 center, but it shows him on their starting roster. So hopefully that's a good sign. And again, I mentioned Evangelista. It shows him on the second line with Svechkov and Stamkos. So we'll see. I mean, only time's going to tell, but I really hope this works out for the Preds now that this crap with Luke Evangelista is done. Hopefully they can move forward and start building the next wave of great Predators players.
Yeah, I'm with you. So I will say, I mean, at this point, what do you have to lose after last season? I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but how much worse can it get?
Oh yeah, last season really. I don't think anybody in their right mind could have guessed how poorly that would blow up in their face last year.
I know. I know we sure as hell didn't. So,
all right. Well, we're gonna go to break here. When we come back, we will talk about the grudge match of sort that the Panthers and Lightning have had this preseason, as well as we'll close the show with a Blue Jackets corner. But yeah, we're gonna take a quick break here from our friends over at Xenopucks, and we'll come back and we'll kind of get things wrapped up. This is the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast.
It's hockey season, and you're looking to work on your stick handling or maybe even your shot, but ice time just isn't an option for you right now. Luckily, our buddies over at Xenopucks have got you covered. They've developed an elite off-ice practice puck that, in addition to looking like the real thing, is the same size and weight as a regulation hockey puck to give you that authentic feel on the end of your stick. It works better than other off-ice practice pucks on almost any surface, whether you use it on hardwood, carpet, concrete, or even asphalt. Xenopucks glide like a real puck on ice. So if you're looking to improve your game without setting foot on the ice, head over to www.xenopucks.com and get yourself a puck. Check out their merch selection and be sure to follow them on Instagram at Xenopucks.
All right, and we're back. So, again, thanks as always to our boys down at Xenopucks for sponsoring the show. We greatly appreciate that. Let's come out of the break with this. So, the Panthers and Lightning last Thursday played a game where they combined for 186 penalty minutes. So, Lightning win 5-2 final. Everything was nuts in this game. Roughing, fighting, slashing, cross-checking, high-sticking. I mean,
shooting, stabbing.
Yeah, I mean, there was almost every. I think the only penalty I didn't see in this damn game was like a face-off violation. There was a little bit. There was a little bit of everything in this one, and it was for a preseason game. I think it was about as nasty as you could have seen. The 186 penalty minutes, and then Lightning were on the power play 8 times. Panthers were 7 times. So 15 total power plays in the game. And 186 penalty minutes is nuts. That alone would be worth talking about by itself. given that it's a preseason game, that alone would make it worth talking about until Saturday night when they somehow found a way to not only have 186 penalty minutes, but it was actually nearly double that. They combined for a total, if this math is correct here, they combined for 322 penalty minutes. Yikes.
Yeah.
And then this was clearly a revenge game. I think the Lightning were just pissed about the way they got knocked around. And so they go after the Panthers. This one is a 7-0 final in Florida's favor, which we'll get to that in a sec. But this was just a revenge game. I don't think anybody really had intentions of playing hockey. I think these are two teams who are at the top of their game, who can't fucking stand each other, that have come off back-to-back seasons with intense playoff series. And again, same result both times. The Panthers are kind of taking over being the better Florida team now. And so the Lightning still trying to prove that they're a team to be feared, stand up for themselves this game. But this game had, again, 322 penalty minutes and a combined 25 power plays. The Panthers were 6 out of 20 for the power play, which still seems made up. And the Lightning were 0 for 5 on their power play opportunities. But it's so stupid. 20 power plays in one game is hilarious. The Lightning
turned. I was to say it's like someone turned NHL 26 or turned it on easy mode. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is nuts. At 20 power plays, it just looks stupid to even see that many. And the Panthers actually had an 8th goal that was removed. And then more penalty time was assessed because Nico Mikkola was kicked out of the game, didn't realize he was, kept playing, and then assisted on an 8th goal. And so the Panthers late in the game taking an ineligible player penalty that had to get served too. Again, another one where I feel like the only penalty the only penalty not called was a fucking face-off violation, it looks like. So we got a little bit of everything in both of these games. But Andrew, as a fan of the Panthers, what do you think about two teams just beating the fucking snot out of each other for two virtually meaningless games?
Well, it's
real quick. One thing I didn't mention in that too, so they had all these penalties in minutes. There was a total of 65 single penalties called in that game Saturday. Continue.
Well, from a non-hockey standpoint, it's definitely comical, just from a numbers perspective. 322 penalty minutes. I mean, okay, first thing, obviously, it's preseason. None of it matters. These two teams very clearly hate each other. As far as that goes, I just want to say, as far as Tampa Bay is concerned, the king has been dethroned as far as who's running the show in Florida. It's definitely the Panthers, like you said. And they've got the back-to-back cups to prove it. Tampa did the same thing, so I'm not knocking Tampa, although one of those cups didn't count. Well, but near those cups counted.
I don't really count. I don't count any of them. I think their 0-4 one was a scam too. Calgary won that shit, but
yeah,
we'll talk about that later.
That's for a different day. Man, I don't even know where to start with this, because the whole thing, unhinged isn't even the proper term here. I don't even know what to call it. But Florida, especially these last two seasons, are a very physical and abusive team. I would even go as far as to say abusive. And that really came out in these games against Tampa. Now, Tampa is not really a team to be pushed around. They kind of, I don't want to say they let things slide in the first game, but clearly they had enough come game 2. And this is the time of the year for them to actually hash this out, because you're not going to see this from them in the regular season. Granted, it's still going to be two very physical teams playing against each other in the regular season, but it's not going to be this massive, undisciplined, blood shedding, I don't even know what to call it, all out war, for lack of a better term, like it was. I think if you watched it, you got the show of a lifetime. It's not something you're going to see regularly every year, regardless of if it's preseason or not. Now, on the serious side of things, I understand it's preseason and this was the opportunity for them to all let their aggressions out, but you got to be careful in situations like this. The season hasn't even started yet, and you don't want to go getting injured doing stupid shit like this. And I'm not fully knocking it, because I think we all enjoyed seeing it, and I'd say all the fans in attendance got their money's worth. But this is one of those situations you got to be careful, man. This is how guys get injured before the season starts. You're not looking, especially if you're Florida trying to go for a three-peat, you're not trying to lose more than you already have with Tkachuk, and now you got Barkov out for the season too. This isn't a time to be stupid. So on the one side of things, it was funny. It was cool to see. It was a good time. But on the other side of things, I just felt it was completely unnecessary. It was a very undisciplined, but such is the game we know and love. But as a Panthers fan, love it. Love the rivalry that has formed between Tampa and Florida. And I mean, it's always been there, but it has intensified 1,000%. And I'm here for it, man. And, I have a very good friend who actually listens to the show who's a diehard Bolts fan. And the one thing I love about these two teams is every time they play each other, it's always a good game, no matter what. They always play each other well. So we'll see. It's going to make for an interesting regular season. I can tell you that for free.
Yeah. And some fallout from those games. Numerous fines have been handed out, but some suspensions that came down the pipeline. Forward Scott Sabourin from Tampa Bay suspended 4 games for that sucker punch he threw at Aaron Ekblad. So he's going to miss a little bit of time. And then JJ Moser as well is going to get a 2-game suspension for boarding Jesper Boquist as well. So a little bit of supplemental discipline falling out from the events that have taken place over the last couple of days. And again, numerous fines, but the fines are always a joke. They're usually they're pocket change amounts to NHL players. So I always feel like those are less than a slap on the wrist. I feel like it would do them more harm to literally slap them on the wrist.
Yeah.
Like physically grabbing them and just hitting them on the wrist, I think is more impactful to them than taking $2,000 from guys that make, $10 million. Now, these two players specifically don't, but you get what I'm saying.
I do. But this also these suspensions go right back to my point of now's not the time to be being undisciplined. This is not, now there's actual real repercussions for this. You got 2 guys now out of your lineup to start the season. And granted, you'd rather have these suspensions right at the beginning than you would at the end of the season if you're trying to make a push for the playoffs or
whatever. The playoffs.
Yeah, or if you're in the playoffs, exactly. But still, this isn't the time. There's still real repercussions for everything you do. So, like I said, it was cool and fun, but at the same time, you got to be smarter than that.
Yeah, and again, I mean, it's a bottom 6 forward and a bottom pair defenseman, but again, it's still 2 parts of your team that you don't want to be unnecessarily losing, guys. I mean, again, two games lost for a defender and 4 games missing any of your normal starters, I feel like is not ideal. So it is what it is, but yeah, those were just 2 crazy ass games, and since they were both your team, I had to let you. We had to hear what you had to say about that because that was, like you said, comical from the outside looking in.
100%.
All right, little Blue Jackets corner before we go. So camp's done now, and again, we'll talk about the Jackets at great length on our next couple episodes. We'll finish our conference preview with the Jackets next week, and then when we have Jeff Rimmer on the show as well, we will, of course, talk at length about the Jackets. But just a little bit before we go, now that training camp's done, we have an idea kind of what the roster looks like. I mean, what kind of expectations should we really have going into the season? It's largely an unchanged group in many facets, but again, bringing in Miles Wood and Charlie Coyle to really help solidify that bottom 6, I think is going to be great. Daily Faceoff has Kent Johnson on the 3rd line, which I think is funny, but I'm like, playing with a bruiser that can skate like Olivier and playing with a guy like Charlie Coyle who's going to get you the puck.
Yeah,
I know it's a 3rd line, but that might actually be really effective. So I don't even hate that if that ends up being the case. I like that they're starting the season with a healthy Boone Jenner. Hopefully his health is not an issue again this season. But overall, the team looks pretty solid. I don't know how long it is before Jet takes over the net from Elvis Merzlikins, but I envision that to be probably before Christmas.
I'm with you on that. That's one thing I want to say is congrats to Jet for
making the
spot.
team. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
absolutely.
We should have led with that.
Yeah, we should have led with that, but it's okay. Well deserved. I don't think there's a person out there that would disagree. More than deserved spot on that roster, and he really truly cemented that. I would argue with the way he ended last season with them. Just stellar performances in net, and I think, like Brian said, it won't be long before he solidifies the starting position, and rightfully so. As long as he continues to play the way he's capable of. but I'm really happy to see him there. And I will say, I think probably closer to Christmas, there's a good chance we see Luca Del Belbaluz on this roster for good too. I really
think
do.
so. And honestly, with Elvis, it's not even that I don't think he's capable of having a good season. I want Jet to have like a 930 or like a 925 save percentage. Like I want him to be so good that they have to start him. I still want Elvis to have a good season. I mean, I'd love like a 910, 915, like a very solid season. I think it would show. I mean, I think it would do Elvis wonders to have a season like that. I don't want him to leave. Like I want him to be good enough to stick around, but I really want to see Jet kind of take over and use the runway he gave himself. I mean, he won, 6 games in a row to close out last season. Yes. I want to see him use the runway that he gave himself to, again, get some starts early in the season, because I'm sure they're going to be playing him a bit to see kind of who's going to really take the reins here. But use the starts you get. You may not win every game, but you know what? Look sound in the net. Like, look alive. Come ready to play every night, and I'm sure he will. It's never really an issue with Jet Greaves. He's never a guy. He's not a Tristan Jarry where he's letting in the first shot of the game 15 times in one season, which I think is a real number. I think he let it in the first shot on goal like 14 times last year, which is a nightmare. I don't know if that was Tristan Jarry or if it was the Penguins as a whole, but I can tell you Jarry was in net for most of those. But for Jet, I just want him to be responsible. I don't want him to try too hard either. Like I don't want him to get the moments to get too big for him because he's trying too hard to earn a spot. I want to see him go out and be effective and again get that big save percentage number up and give them no choice but to play him.
Yeah. And coming from a Monsters fan standpoint, last season and the season before, and I'm sure everybody else that listens knows too, my wife and I are season ticket holders for the Monsters, and every year to start the season they do a meet the team event. So I've gotten to meet Jet twice. My wife was out of town for the first season, but last year we both got to meet him. He's just such a nice guy, and he trains hard, he plays hard, he brings passion to wherever he is, and it doesn't matter. I mean, to an extent, it matters what kind of team you ice in front of him. But even when the Monsters were at their worst, he still looked solid in net, and he only ever went up to the NHL and proved his worth. So I'm gonna miss seeing him play in Cleveland, but he's where he deserves to be right now, and I can only hope this turns out to be great in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. Jet, by the way, some career numbers for Jet in the AHL. You mentioned how good he's been the last 2 seasons. His numbers last season, he was a .920 save percentage last year with a .262 goals against. In 6 playoff games, he was a .912 save percentage. The year before, so 23-24, he was a .910 save percentage with a .293 goals against. 30 wins that season, which was pretty damn good. And then in the playoffs in 2024, a .926 save percentage at 2.17 goals against. He had 8 wins, 5 losses, and a shutout in that run that saw the Monsters come up just a goal short of heading to the Calder Cup Finals. That was a hell of a run they put together. That just came up short, but again, Jet was the backstop for all of that action. So there was a couple of bumps in the road last season with Jet. There was a couple games we were at with him where I'm like, I really did not like his play, but looking in the at the bigger picture here at his stats, I always will wonder why I didn't give him a longer leash in my own head. Like why didn't I think this guy was more ready for it than he actually is? But nonetheless, he's here now, and I think he's going to run with this opportunity.
Yeah. And I mean, damn well, I haven't shut up since I started going since I became a season ticket holder. I've been saying since day one, Jet should be in the NHL, and that day's finally come, and I'm very happy about it. And if you're a Jackets fan, you should be excited for this too. This is, I will go as far to say as this is the solution to goaltending right here for the Blue Jackets.
And it very well could be. So let's see. McDavid signed with the Oilers, so there's probably a 0% chance he comes to Columbus ever, right? So
yeah. I think that's a safe speculation.
So with the $14 million that the Jackets have in cap space, I kind of wonder where they would look to go from here. Because again, the roster on paper is not bad. I mean, we're talking literally, I think a tiebreaker kept them out of the playoffs. So I mean, they were right there. They're right there. It's a lot of money to spend, and the free agent class coming into next summer is quickly dwindling. I mean, the big names are already off the board pretty much, except for Jack Eichel, which I don't envision it'll be much longer before he extends in Vegas. I'm sure he personally and the team would like to get it done. Like McDavid and Kirill Kaprizov, they want to get this done before the season really gets going, so it's not a storyline. And I'd be stunned if Jack Eichel signed anywhere else. He's already won a championship. He should have won the Conn Smythe that season. Like, this is a guy who's already done it all and is still on a team that's really sick and in its championship window. I don't envision it's much longer. So, like, the free agent crop for next summer is quickly slipping away. And so I kind of wonder what the Blue Jackets are going to do. Luckily for them, they're kind of in a playing with house money spot again, where so many of these guys are on prove-it deals that it's, or not prove-it deals, but we have some prove-it seasons here. Charlie Coyle's on the last year of his deal, making 5.2, but he's 33. Cole Sillinger and Yegor Chinikov are going to be RFAs after this year and will need extensions. They're both making only $2 million. I envision quite a bit of a race for Cole Sillinger, and with any luck, Yegor Chinikov will have a good year and get a little bump in salary too. But the big one, obviously, is Adam Fantilli, who I assume will, if he has a true breakout year, he's going to be going at least to 10 million. So I just wonder, do the Jackets even look to address things in free agency, or do they do kind of what Anaheim's been doing and buying into their rebuild and just sticking with their guys? Because again, they're not the deepest team down the middle, but they can get better. Adam Fantilli can continue to get better as a center and become more and more effective in that role. Plus, Caden Lindstrom is coming through the pipeline. Like, there's a chance he's going to be able to play some top 6 minutes when he's finally in the show. Whether you start him on the wing or not, I think they should start him at center. Do you maybe put him at center when he comes up and move Monahan? Do you keep Charlie Coyle? There's a lot of ways they can go with this. But I don't really think any route they go really requires them to sign a big superstar. I think they can continue to draft and develop their own elite talents and just bring in like the Charlie Coyles of the world, to round out the roster, or like on the back end, like a Dante Fabro, like a guy who's not a game breaker, but a guy who's going to give you responsible minutes every night. And so I almost wonder if they do that, because you're going to have to spend money somewhere. And again, with guys like Fantilli who are going to get big raises, I mean, you almost don't want to take a gamble on a free agent. You'd rather go with, you'd rather deal with the devil than the one you don't. So I kind of, if that's me, I think I've convinced myself that they just need to go this route and buy into their own guys, because you look at what's left in the free agent market, and again, nothing's a guarantee. I mean, not even your own guys are a guarantee, but why gamble on something you don't have when you already have something that you're pretty confident in?
Well, and I'm right there with you. Same thing on my end. There's no reason to go fishing around in the free agent market, especially because there's going to be essentially nobody of significance out there. I think they have the talent they need. It's just a matter of development at this point. And I think they have the tools to be successful too. I truly, firmly believe that this team could be one of the better teams in the league within the next 5 years, provided they allocate their resources appropriately. But you've got a lot of good young talent. Like you said, you bring in guys like Charlie Coyle to kind of round everything out. He's got that good veteran presence and that leadership mentality, and he can still perform on the ice. That's a big thing. So I think you've solved your goaltending issue now. Now you start working on your young prospects that are on your team already, such as your Adam Fantillis like that. Maybe bring up a guy like Luca Del Belbaluz who shows promise. I think there's a lot of good things that they already have that, provided development goes well, I think this is going to be a team that's pretty successful, and we're going to be talking about for years to come. I think they have a very promising future ahead of them. It's just, I think what it ultimately comes down to is management. And I don't just mean the GM, I mean the coaching, the front. I think that's going to be the key factor here, is managing your assets appropriately.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I mentioned, like, hey, we'll take a look at the free agent crop for 2026. It's not exactly ideal. I mean, Artemi Panarin is probably the best name on this list, but even he's going to be 35. I see him either, which is weird, but I see him either re-signing with the Rangers or going to another team with Russian stars on it to play with them. So, like, I could see him going to like a Tampa Bay or something like that, or even Minnesota.
I was just going to say Minnesota.
I was going to say Minnesota has a pretty good Russian star too, but I'm just used to guys not wanting to come to Minnesota. But like Panarin, again, a good player, but again, do you even want to bring in that guy? He's 30. He'll be 35 at that point. Do you want to roll the dice and and actually he'll turn 36 during next season. He's almost 35 now.
I say no.
Do you even want to take the chance with the guy like that? I mean, he may have some good years left. He's still a good player for sure, but you don't know what you're going to get at that point. And then you look at this list, like Jack Eichel, technically going to be a UFA, but he'll be locked up by then. Sergei Bobrovsky, if he doesn't retire, he's staying with the Panthers. There's just no way he doesn't.
Yeah.
Alex Ovechkin, again, will be a free agent, but he's going to retire, and he wouldn't play for another team anyways. If he stuck around, it'd be the Caps. Kyle Connor, another guy, I could have sworn he extended, but I must just be hallucinating. But he's again one where it's like he's almost certainly going to stay with the team he's with, and so the talent just starts to drop off so quickly that you're like, it's not even worth really going at. All the players that were going to be worth going after are now gone.
Right. I'm a firm believer of they've got, what is it, 14 million in cap space right now. So I say save your money. Oh, I sound like our dad. Save your money.
You sound just like I was like, man, I just had a flashback. Holy crap.
Yeah. But
save your dough.
Save your dough and wait to see what these young guys do this year, and then spend the money accordingly on the guys you already have who are hopefully going to earn bigger contracts. So I think that's a smart move. I think anything outside of that is unnecessary and a waste of money at that point.
And again, I think Adam Fantilli, I think is going to be one of those guys where he's going to see like a $9 million raise. So
for sure,
with the cap going up $9 million, they could still have just about as much space even after they get an extension done. Like they could really do well for themselves here. And again, that doesn't consider the fact that like Cole Sillinger is probably going to get a pretty solid raise. I would think at least a couple million bump. Boo Jenner, I would think they re-sign him since he's the captain as long as he continues to play at the level he is. I imagine he probably stays around the same, maybe gets a bump just because the cap's going up so much. And a guy like Charlie Coyle, if he sticks around. But Jet is also going to be a free agent after this year. So not only is this his chance to prove it as far as getting a starting role, but this is his proven chance as far as making a good chunk of change. He's going to be 25 by the time this season is done, I believe. And, this is another guy who's going to be due to get a raise. I mean, if he performs as well as we think he can, I would think he'll be looking at probably $4 to $5 million as well. Somewhere in that range, maybe 4.5, something like that. I mean, if he has a really good year, so they're going to have some money to spend. And so I think it's safe to say we both agree that it's just like go with what you got and build around what you got, because the talent's definitely there. It's all about plugging in the right pieces. I really hope that Fantilli can take that number one center job, and that Lindstrom, when he comes up to the big club eventually, is able to take that number 2 spot. Yeah, he's got to be a fucking force, man. I talked about when we talked about the Blues last week, I talked about watching Jimmy Snugger just tear it up in college. I've been watching this Lindstrom's highlights, man. And this kid's a fucking machine. So if he's effective in the show as he is in juniors, man, it's gonna be a fun team to watch a couple of years down the road. It's gonna be fun to watch this year, but they're gonna be really good. I think in the next couple of years. So it's kind of exciting to watch this project really come together that they've had in Columbus. And I think Don Waddell, since he's taken over, has done a really good job with this club. He didn't pull any punches when he gave his introductory press conference. And I really think he's done a very sound, responsible job running this group as he has.
Yeah. And I knew that was going to be the case. I remember when we were doing a pod, summer 24, I remember I was in Florida and I was talking about he was going to be such a great fit for Columbus. He was a very smart GM, and I think he's done nothing but prove it thus far. And I think there's a lot of good chemistry on this team. And like I always say, chemistry is what makes or breaks a team at the end of the day. These guys truly care about each other on and off the ice. And it shows in the on-ice product. I just think after watching them last season, I'm pumped to watch him this season. I know we're going to go to games this year, and I'm excited for it. I think there's a lot to be hopeful for in the Blue Jackets fandom.
Yeah, definitely. So it's funny. The top article on NHL.com is McDavid puts Oilers on notice with 2-year extension.
They ain't wrong.
Yeah, they're not wrong. It's just a fun way to put that. So anyways, so yeah, I think that's a good note to wrap this Blue Jackets corner on. Obviously, we'll talk again a little bit more about them next week when we do our conference preview, and obviously we'll talk at length about the Jackets when we have Jeff Rimmer, and I still can't believe that's going to happen. So
I'm so damn excited, and he was so I'm not gonna put everything out there, but I just reached out to him and said, "Hey man, we'd love to have you on the show." And he responded almost instantly, and he was like, "It'd be my pleasure to be on. Just let's make a time work, and we'll get to it." So I am over the moon excited. This is top 5 life moment for me.
Yeah, this will be pretty cool. So I mean, obviously our Jacket fan listeners will be extremely excited to hear Jeff's voice again, since we, as hockey fans as a whole, we were robbed of not having him on the air last season, obviously with his well-deserved retirement. I mean, nobody can work forever. The great Doc Emmerich was another one. When he retired, I was like, son of a bitch. So it happens to all of them. But I mean, even Jim Houston, who, Canadians will know very well from his time with Rogers Media, doing games on CBC and Sportsnet. He was another one. When he retired, a lot of people were upset. Just because it's, the voice you hear growing up. And for Jackets fans, that's no different with Jeff Rimmer, as he was really the only voice they had for a long time. So kind of bittersweet when he retired, but it'll be excellent to get him on the show and really have a chance to pick at his brain. Somebody who was around the game as long as he was and knows it so well and called it beautifully. It's going to be really cool. So very grateful to have a chance to do that.
Yes, and Panthers fans, you should recognize him too, because before he was with the Jackets, he was with the Panthers. So I think that's worth mentioning too. I think he did a couple seasons with Washington, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's where he first was. And then he was with the Panthers from like 93 to 04, I believe. And then that's when he went to Columbus.
Now I know this sounds silly to say, because obviously there were others before him, but it's impossible for my brain to wrap its head around somebody other than Joe Beninati calling Caps games on TV.
Yeah, well, and I'm with you 100%. I if I'm not mistaken, he was only with Washington, I believe, for like 2 seasons, I think. So, but yeah, I'm with you 100%. But you can say the same thing about Rimmer with Columbus at the same time. Yeah, so, I mean, when I think Blue Jackets, I think Jeff Rimmer. So that's just, it is what it is, man. So he was one of the best to ever do it, and I can't wait to sit down and talk with him. That's going to be a fun episode.
Oh yeah, that's going to be that'll be pretty cool. I don't know how else to put it. It's just going to be kind of surreal, but we'll be very grateful to have him on here. So again, next Sunday we're going to come back. We're going to do our Eastern Conference preview show. We would have really loved to do it today, but life keeps all of us busy, and had we recorded and put out that show, it just wouldn't have been to the level of detail that we're aiming for with the episode. So it'll come next Sunday, and that'll just be the way it goes.
Yeah, and I think the most important factor here regarding this evening is you and I have a baseball game we need to watch this evening. The Milwaukee Brewers versus the Chicago Cubs in Game 2 of the NLDS.
Yeah, we do have to watch that, which that's the other thing is had I finished and we compiled and went over all the notes for this show, we wouldn't have probably even started recording till 8:30 tonight, and the game starts at 9 Eastern, which congrats MLB on that one.
Yeah.
But that's an entirely different. This is a football show, not a baseball show. But we would have not even finished recording this thing until probably 11 o'clock, and we would have just never had time to watch that game and enjoy it as we should. And we also would have probably slept like shit. So.
And we do have to work tomorrow, so
yes, we do.
a lot of things go into planning for this. And I mean, at the end of the day, our biggest goal is to put out the best product that we believe we can for everybody who tunes in. So, and had we gone to the Eastern Conference preview route tonight, it wouldn't have been to our standard. So, we'll make sure we get it where it needs to be on Sunday for you guys. And hey, if nothing else, the season starts tomorrow. By the time you guys are listening to this, it'll be opening day.
Which is crazy. And again, you mentioned work keeps us busy. There's a reason that we stopped doing this show twice a week, because those of you who listen from our show's infancy will remember that we used to record every Monday and Wednesday. Work just kept us too busy for that. Yeah, those Wednesday shows felt like we were putting a Band-Aid over a water leak, like it was bad. So it was tough.
Ironically, that's what I used to do for work.
So rather than put out a show that feels very forced and kind of slapped together, we just made the responsible choice to put it off a couple days. Again, obviously it'll leak into the regular season, but the predictions and previews and all that will still apply. It'll be so early on. So look forward to that Sunday, and we'll get that to you guys as quickly as we can on Sunday. So we're not any further behind.
Yeah, I'm with you. So with that being said, as always, make sure you follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, and TikTok at Fresh Ice Pod. If you have a question or any input you want to send into the show, you can email us, freshicehockeypodcast@gmail.com. And I think that's all I got on our end. Make sure you stay tuned, and we'll keep you guys posted on socials about when we're going to have Jeff Rimmer on the show, and we will go from there.